Hey everybody, it's Tristan Shuffles here, back with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel deck profile, and even if you're just here for this deck list, remember to like, comment, and subscribe because it really makes a difference for the channel. A couple months ago, I covered the Illusion archetype back before it had the latest wave of support, and now that it has Diabell's the original Sin Keeper, I think the deck has been elevated to the top of meta play so it can compete with the best of the best, thanks to Diabell's anti-spell-like effect that forces your opponent to set their spell and trap cards, which effectively stops all of their quick play spell cards as long as this monster is on your field, and it's easily searchable in this deck. Let's take a look at this deck list. I'm playing a small Melodious package with Ostinato because this card is so much better than Branded Fusion, which I had in an earlier build, because you can run 3 copies, and it does not lock you into fusion summoning for the rest of the turn. So this way you can set up a board that includes 2 Botcha the Melodious Maestra, which you can Xyz summon into Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, sending that to the graveyard for Cross Sheep, and you special summon Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, which will give you a negate as long as you have a card face up in your extra deck, which you will from one of your Pendulum Melodious monsters, and of course, Apollousa, Bow of the Goddess, which might be weak to some of the board breakers right now, but again, you'll have Diabell's to safeguard you from those. And this way, you can be protected from your opponent's hand traps before you commit to any of the main deck Illusion cards. The Illusion main deck engine is very consistent, thanks to Gazelle, the king of Mythical Claws, which, when used as fusion material, allows you to add an Illusion monster from your deck to your hand. And you'll usually want to add Nightmare Apprentice because she can special summon herself from your hand at the cost of a discard. You'll always have a full hand in this deck because she herself will add another Illusion monster from your deck to your hand, and you'll want to go for either Diabell's or Master Tau the Enchanter based on your plays so far in the turn. Next up, you might be noticing that I cut Super Polymerization, which you see in a lot of Chimera Illusion lists. I think that it is not the strongest board breaker right now, and it feels very weak to be setting that into Tenpai going first, especially since you can special summon Magnum the Reliever and Guardian Chimera with Chimera Fusion, and those aren't really Super Polymerization targets. This way, with the Melodious cards, you can protect your Illusion monsters, which generally Mirror Sword Knight is pretty weak to Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, as Big Wing Berfomet is weak to Effect Veiler, unless you can dodge that kind of spot negation by already having Chimera Fusion in hand. I ultimately think it's worth playing over 40 cards so that you can dilute the chance of drawing one of the classic polymerizations, because you really want to be adding those either via Tam Tam the Melodious Diva, which you can special summon through Botcha's effect using Ostinato, or through the effect of Fright for Patchwork, which would also allow you to add the Fiend, Edge and Chain, which is great discard fodder and great fusion material since it's a Fiend type monster. Looks a little strange, but I have 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. This was because I was fed up with losing to Gimmick Puppet FTK, and this can stop them in their tracks a lot of the time, even though they will have some protection through either the Gimmick Puppet Terror Baby or the field spell from Monster Effects, which is why I'm playing Imperm over Effect Veiler. There could be an argument for Effect Veiler as another name for Guardian Chimera, but ideally you want to be using Effect Veiler for its effect, rather than as fusion or link material. Let's review the extra deck. We have Garura, Wings of Resonant Life, which I'm still playing, even though it's primarily used as a super polymerization target, because sometimes you will have a fusion spell in your hand in this deck, and you'll really want to special summon even though you don't have the right types of monsters, so that you can get their effects or get your monsters like Cornfield Kodo and Mirror Sword Knight into the graveyard where they can use their effects, depending on whether you have Chimera, the flying mythical beast, on your field. So it's another fusion option, which gives you some flexibility. Of course, you'll mainly want to be special summoning with Chimera Fusion, Chimera, the king of Phantom Beasts, which is always treated as Chimera, the flying mythical beast, and gives you a free discard. Next up, we have Baphomet the Mythical King, which allows you to send a beast, fiend, or illusion monster directly from your deck to the graveyard. And you can send Master Tau the Chanter to special summon back Diabellus the Original Sin Keeper, which you can use as fusion material earlier in the turn and add off of either Mythical Claws or Nightmare Apprentice's effect. I've talked about the Melodious monsters already. Chimera the Illusion Beast. This used to be one of the weakest cards in the deck, and now I find myself summoning this to close out games the majority of the time, because you just have so many different illusion monsters now that it's easy to get 4 attacks with this, and you don't even have to attack directly, which allows you to use something like SP Little Knight's first banish effect and win the duel without attacking directly. Magnum the Reliever, I almost cut, but even though this extra deck is pretty tight, I think that having the ability to special summon this is too good to pass up on, because it gives you that extra draw, and you always want a full hand to special summon Guardian Chimera with. The only stronger card in the extra deck, aside from Guardian Chimera, is Chaos Angel. Because now that we've got the light attribute level 4 Melodious monsters and the dark attribute level 6 Nightmare Apprentice, you'll be special summoning a Chaos Angel in a lot of games that gains both of its continuous effects, where synchro monsters you control are unaffected by monster effects activated by your opponent, and monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. It is very difficult for many decks to out an unaffected Chaos Angel, or if they rely on cards that destroy your monsters via spell and trap cards, they'll be losing those because Diabellus can pop the first card that they set, and sometimes they might set their strongest board breaker by mistake, or you're going to be destroying it after they think they're in the clear by special summoning Guardian Chimera through a quick play spell on your opponent's turn. Next, we have Bagooska the Terribly Tired Tapir. This is a concession to the format where Maxi is still at 3, you know? So sometimes you might not be able to make very many plays, but you can at least put up this decent floodgate against your opponent and hope for the best. One more thing I wanted to mention is that in the first replay I was using Emissary from the House of Wax. Unfortunately, I had to cut this card. I think it will see play again at some point, but since Tenpai blanks out a lot of your effects during the battle phase, this card is no longer worth playing in the current meta, and I decided to cut Predaplant Dragostapelia for Magnum the Reliever because I felt like I always had the materials for Magnum the Reliever, and that destruction effect was too good to pass up on, versus this kind of generic monster negate that I wasn't really using as much as I thought I was going to. So keep that in mind for the first replay. That being said, I'm excited to show off what this deck can do, so let's get into those games. First up, we have a duel against Yubel, and this shows off what the deck can really do, going first entirely uninterrupted with Melodious and Chimera Illusion. Let's start off with the Ostinato to send Tamtam and Refrain to the graveyard, summon out Botcha. Botcha's effect activates to summon from deck, and we can chain block that with Tamtam. Then we summon Refrain, add the Couplet, use the Couplet's effect to bring back the Tamtam from the graveyard, and add a Polymerization. Then we can use Couplet the Melodious Diva to add Melodious Concerto. We use Concerto to summon a second Botcha, and after that we can reset our pendulum scales and send the last Refrain from deck to graveyard to get it out of there. Then we can link those off for Cross Sheep, and once Odd Eye's Absolute Dragon is in the graveyard, we can summon that Vortex Dragon, draw an extra card off Concerto, and special summon back one Pendulum monster from our graveyard with the Cross Sheep and Botcha's effect. Then we have Apollosa set up, and now we can go into Gazelle, add the Big Wing Baphomet, fusion summon with Chimera Fusion from hand to summon out Chimera. Then we have the Fusion Chimera, and we're adding more cards, including Frightful Patchwork and the Nightmare Apprentice from the Claws effect. Then we can use Patchwork, which we haven't used yet, add the Edgem Chain, and another Polymerization. Let's use Nightmare Apprentice to add Cornfield Codal, the last missing piece of our Chimera cards, the Mirror Sword Knight. Then we add the Chimera Fusion back, and we use regular Polymerization because we want to save Chimera Fusion for the next turn. Let's use the Baphomet's effect to send Diabellus to the graveyard, and we brought back the Mirror Sword Knight, bringing back the Baphomet with the effect of the Baphomet from the graveyard. We've pretty much gone through our whole engine here, so I had to end on Dragostapelia. You can see why Magnum the Reliever would be better there. We get a free discard, I see they're on Yubel with that Nightmare Throne, and it's their turn. And of course, I have to bring back the Diabels with the Chimera's effect from the graveyard to protect us from their spell and trap cards. All they can do is summon Phantom of Yubel. They don't even activate its effect that I was trying to bait out, so I just negate that with Dragostapelia. Again, would have been better to destroy it with Magnum the Reliever. They use Super Polymerization, but Garura or Venom Dragon is not going to help them out of this one. They have to scoop from there. This next duel is against Cyberse Mathematic. We are going first, and we have Ostinato in hand, so we can effectively go full combo. And I decided to try to bait out the Ash Blossom with Fright for Patchwork. Doesn't seem like they have it. We've got Egypt Chain and Poly, and we can use Ostinato, but nope, they have the Maxi instead. That's even worse. Okay, we can use Botcha here and special summon from deck anyway, chain blocking Tam Tam. This way we can still get Couplet, but nope, they drew Effect Failure. Okay, they have a lot of hand trap cards. Let's use Cornfield Kotal. Now they have the Ash Blossom. Alright, we've been stopped at every turn here, but we can still use Bingweave Baphomet via Tribute Summon and set Chimera Fusion. We don't even revive from the graveyard with Botcha because why give them another draw? Alright, they use Cyanide Mining, and they add Mathmech Circular. So they're going to special summon that, obviously, but I felt that by destroying it here, I could cut off their plays, but no, they have Maxi, so they're going to keep drawing and get into a normal summon. Alright, so let's use Guardian Chimera to destroy Circular on field. We get to add another Patchwork and bring out Diabels, which cuts off a lot of their spell and trap cards. But they drew Diameter anyway. Oh, what it would be like to have this kind of luck. They use Prime Mathmech Elimburtion and add an addition from their deck to their hand, and they summon out Lingaribo, and they have the Parallel Exceed as well. The luck is on their side in this duel, but they make a disastrous misplay when they get rid of the multiplication, and they use Transcotalker, bringing back the Splash Mage, but even if they summon out Axis Kotalker here, it's not going to have enough attack points to close out the game. They can only attack with one monster at this point, thanks to Circular's effect and the other Mathmechs they've used. Alright, they bring out Decotalker, Heat Soul, and this gives them an extra draw, but I still feel like we can win. They only have one card in their back row, and they don't even have the Firewall Dragon. Alright, so let's use Fright from Patchwork. Add the second Polymerization and second Edge of Chain from our deck to our hand. Then we can use Cornfield Kotal, and oh my gosh, the third Maxi, but luckily we finally have Ash Blossom and Joyce. Okay, they have Called by the Grave, so they're still gonna have those Maxi draws and draw into their additional hand traps, so I've got to play through this as quickly as possible and under Nibiru the Primal Being, hopefully. Alright, we've sent Baphomet to Graveyard via Fusion effect there, and we get to add Nightmare Apprentice. Let's bring back Diabels, and now we can use Polymerization with enough material to make Chimera the Illusion Beast, and this will give us enough attacks to close out the game. We attack Heat Soul once, turn its attack to 0, and attack a final time for the damage we need to win the game against all 3 copies of Maxi and full Mathmech combo. Next up, we have a duel against Tenpai Dragon. We are going first with no idea that they were on Tenpai at the time, but I wanted to show what this deck can do with not all of its resources in the opener. Let's use Nightmare Apprentice to add Cornfield Kotal, send the Cornfield Kotal to add Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws, summon Mirror Sword Knight, use its effect, special summon Big Wing Baphomet. We're adding Chimera Fusion and another Mythical Claws, and we can Fusion Summon from here to summon out the Fusion Chimera, King of Phantom Beasts. Then we get our free discard and add the Diabels to hopefully summon that on the next turn. Let's add back Chimera Fusion, set that along with Called by the Grave, and we pass from there, getting a discard, revealing they're on Tenpai. Okay, so I knew that I had to destroy the first Fire Dragon that they summon. They're able to fire off their quick play spell cards because I don't have Diabels up, but I'm able to bring it out later in the turn. They use Genroku's effect to special summon Hydra from deck, but it's too late. We've got Guardian Chimera on our field, and we're going to be able to destroy it. We are able to use Chimera's effect to bring back a monster from our graveyard and add another illusion monster with Gazelle. Diabels returns, thanks to Chimera King of Phantom Beasts. Okay, so now we have Nightmare Apprentice as follow-up for next turn. We get 2 draws. They're not usable right now, but they might be later. They add Sangan Kaiman, and that's a big mistake. Even though there weren't any better options, Diabels stops them in their tracks. Alright, so I wanted to show off a duel where we're going second and we're up against Snake Eyes. The opponent gets to go basically full combo because we haven't drawn any hand traps, but I still think that Chimera is strong enough to break through this board. They use original Sinful Spoils, some Snake Eye Ash, they add Poplar. Have you seen this play before? They use Snake Eye Poplar to add the Divine Temple of the Snake Eye. Use that Divine Temple to set up the Snake Eyes via Bellstar in their back row. They summon out Linkuriboh, bring Poplar back into their back row, and send it off Snake Eye Ash for Snake Eye Oak, bringing back the Poplar one more time, and using the Bellstar to set up their Snake Eye Ash in the back row, send that for Snake Eye Flamberge. They link off their monsters for IP Masquerena. They use Flamberge's effect, special summon back their Snake Eye monsters from the graveyard, bring out the Promethean Princess, use Princess's effect to bring back the Flamberge, link those off for the Ambler Whale. They use Flamberge to reset IP Masquerena in the back row, set another back row face down, and pass. Okay, I think I can break this. I start off with the Melodious monsters, and unfortunately they have the Max C. Okay, I'm just going to keep playing as if they didn't activate that because I don't have any other choice at this point. I summon out the Botcha, use Botcha's effect, but it gets negated by their Infinite Impermanence. Must be nice. I use Melodious Concerto to special summon another Botcha just to get the first one off the field into the graveyard for its special summon effect. Okay, now I'm resetting the Pendulum Scale, the Chain Block, and they bring up the IP Masquerena. Finally, they've realized it's good for something. Okay, they use their Promethean Princess from the graveyard, which is really good, and I've baited out the SP Little Knight very early on. They banish the Couplet from the back row, which I didn't really care about. They probably thought I was on Melodious. Now I can reveal I am on the illusion cards. Okay, I summon out the Nightmare Apprentice, but unfortunately they have Ghost Bell and Ghost Mourner to stop Tau the Chanter and Nightmare Apprentices. Okay, I brought out the Chaos Angel. I took the damage. I didn't mind at that point. They used Effect Failure, but they didn't read that Chaos Angel, when summoned with a light monster, gains that protection from monster effects. Yeah, being entirely unaffected really pays off here. My one misplay was summoning this Gazelle in attack, but the opponent deals with that for me, and it doesn't seem like they have an out to this Chaos Angel. We'll just have to see. They add the Jet Synchron, summon Jet Synchron. They're spinning their wheels, summoning the Raging Phoenix. They're clearly going for the Zealantis line. Do they know that that also won't affect the Chaos Angel? They use Poplar to add Original Sinful Spoils, so they don't even have the spell card that could put Chaos Angel in the back row. They don't have any spell or trap cards that can deal with this Chaos Angel right now. They wasted their Imperm on the first turn, and now they've destroyed Gazelle, which was their only other way of dealing damage to me, since nothing they have has more than 3,500 attack points. They link off some monsters for Heat of the Fire Charmer. They bring back the Snake Eyes via Bellstar, thinking that'll maybe put it in the back row, but that doesn't work. They bring out the Typhon, thinking that'll negate things with more than 3,000, but it's not an activated effect. So they have to scoop against the Chaos Angel. Pretty impressive stuff from a less than ideal position. So we're back with the deck list, and I think that playing the Chimera cards feels really rewarding now that they have the full suite of illusion monsters to support them, and that this deck can compete at the highest levels thanks to the Melodious package, which pushes this deck over the top and allows you to play through hand traps that would otherwise end your turn on the spot. That'll do it for this video. I'm excited to see where Master Duel goes in 2025, so I'll catch you all in the next video.